Welcome to another segment of the Learn from Professionals initiative of the Young Professionals Career Engagement Program. Today we're pleased to hear from Professor Corey Ciocchetti, Law and Ethics Professor at the University of Denver and author of Inspire Integrity, Chase an Authentic Life. Our goal in today's interview is to offer advice to young adults seeking a career that is meaningful, rewarding, purpose-driven, and authentic. Serving as the Bill Daniels Professor of Business Ethics and Legal Studies at the University of Denver, Professor Ciocchetti is one of the university's most popular and highest rated professors. Corey joined DU after graduating with a law degree from Duke University School of Law, a master's degree in religious studies, and 2 bachelor's degrees in finance and economics, summa cum laude, from the University of Denver. Corey is a talented speaker and teacher and has won numerous teaching and speaking awards, including the Outstanding Professor of the Year Award and the Joel Goldman Award for the most respected speaker on the Campus Speak roster. He currently teaches classes on business law and ethics in a department ranked by the Wall Street Journal and Business Week in the top 10 nationwide for producing students with high ethical standards. Corey speaks to tens of thousands of individuals each year about authentic success and living an ethical life. He has spoken to diverse audiences in over 300 cities and 47 states in the past 18 years. A Colorado native, Corey resides in Denver with his wife Jillian and daughters Sophia and Sydney. So welcome, Corey.
Thank you. What a great introduction. You said my last name right.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a good start.
That's saying something. Yeah.
So we have some questions for you, and first we wanted to ask you what drove you to write a book about pursuing happiness and integrity in one's life.
That's a good question. So I'm just a, kind of a law professor, right? But the department I'm in is ethics and law. And so I had to teach ethics, I had to learn about it, right? And as I started learning about it, I started thinking about it and, kind of thought about this idea of authentic joy, authentic happiness, and realized there isn't a ton out there on that. There's some books out there, but they're sort of either trite or they're too philosophical. And I wanted to write one kind of in the middle that was deep, but also accessible.
So what does that mean to you to be authentically happy?
So you see it all the time where people can sort of fake it, right? And I mean like deep inside, do you have this sense of contentment with your life? So it's not what sort of face do you put on, how do you look on social media? Because that's deceiving, right? It's what's going on deep down inside. And the word happiness, again, I mean it as deep contentment and joy.
And why is that? Why is that such a challenge in today's world?
Well, because there's a lot of lies out there, Scott, right? Like people say, if I could just have a little more money, I'd be happier. Well, that's not true because, we all know rich people who aren't happy, right? So that's not A equals B. If I was better looking, if I was skinnier, if I was more athletic, well, we all know pretty people or handsome people who aren't happy. Or if my grades were better, students say, but I know a lot of 4.0s who aren't happy. If more people respected me, and so all that stuff, we sort of chase it, and you never can win. You'll have it, you'll get money, you'll become good looking, and it won't work.
I see. So in your book, you encourage your readers to pivot and chase real rabbits. What do you mean by real rabbits?
Well, I stole it. It's a story I stole with permission. The ethics piece of that. John Bogle is a famous investor, and he told the story of this greyhound, world famous greyhound, who was about to race in this, the most important race of his life. And he's on the patio talking to his owner, and she looks at him and goes, "Hey, the race is tomorrow. We're going to win. Are you ready to go?" And the dog looks at her and says, "I'm not going to run tomorrow. I'm retiring." and she doesn't understand, right? She's like, well, the race is tomorrow. We're going to win. What's wrong with you? Are you hurt, mad at me? Are you too old? She has a bunch of questions, right? And the dog goes, it's none of that. She goes, well, tell me why you're quitting. And he goes, well, I've been thinking about my life and I've realized, all I've ever done is race and run around these tracks. And it finally occurred to me that those rabbits you have us chasing every day, around the track, they're not real. And so, I sort of took that story and thought about it. Like, we're all chasing this, like money. It's not real. Like, even if you catch it, it's not going to work. And so we chase these fake rabbits, and I would like us to find some real rabbits to chase.
I see. And so that leads into when you talk about leaning your ladder against the wrong wall. What can you explain that?
Yeah, so it's all related, right? So the idea is you don't want to chase things that are fake. You don't want to incessantly climb the ladder of success and then you get to the top and you look down and it's leaning against the wrong wall, right? It's the same principle. And so I tell my audiences, I don't care about your ladder at all. I care about your wall. If you're going to try so hard and work so hard in your life, it should mean something. And, we don't think about that. Even smart people, they just climb and climb and climb to get to these artificial goals, right? They chase and chase and chase. And then they get to their goal, they get to the top or whatever, and it's not where they want it to be. And then you have a real problem, right? Then you got to climb down and start over.
So
Or
I know that
you stay up there miserable, right? Like option B is to stay at the top miserable.
sure, sure. And a lot of young adults that we coach in our program, they're really afraid of that. They're afraid that they'll place their ladder against the wrong wall, and later on, they'll want to make a change, but then they consider that they may be stuck, and
Well, it's
it may
lovely.
be difficult for them to make that change.
I mean, for a young person to think in those terms, they've already won.
Sure. So with the young person, they're thinking about feeding their family and living a fulfilling life. So is it wrong for them to pursue a well-paying job, or is that superficial, or can it also have meaning?
Good. I think that's the best question so far. So none of that stuff I just mentioned is bad. It's just fake, right? So money's not bad. It's bad when it defines you. A job isn't bad. Any job isn't bad as long as it doesn't define you. Right. And so you have to be able to make that distinction. So, by all means, I'm not telling people to just kind of be ambivalent and sit there, but I want them to be content. This is important, content as they chase. And I think that we misinterpret that word, right? We think contentment means I'm going to settle, but that's not what it means. It means I'm content, happy with where I am right now, and I still have goals.
Mm-hmm. So can you expound upon your statement that experiences are better than stuff?
Well, if I was to look at my 20 best memories, and this is an exercise everyone should do, none of them revolve around the stuff that I have, right? It's all around my family or something I did in a speech, and the stuff is peripheral to that, right? Again, it's not bad. It just is fake.
Mm-hmm.
So my hope would, like have all the cool stuff you want. If someone were to take it from you, though, would you still be happy? Would you still be you? Then you could tell what's defining you.
I know that every time my wife and I have moved, we usually get rid of a lot of that stuff that we thought was so important. And we go into our storage room and we realize that there's a box in there that we haven't opened for 20 years. So how important is that stuff?
There you go. Again, none of this is rocket science, right? It's just like understanding it in terms that will motivate you to act.
I like that. So what advice can you give young adults about leading an intentional life and finding a career that is intentional for them?
Good. You need to find the place in your life where your passions on one hand and your talents on the other collide. And for most people, that's, 5 or 6 different things. It's not just one thing. So what do you what do you love more than anything? You should list, 5 things. And then what are you really, really good at? So much better at than your peers. And then you want to find out where those 2 things meet. So when I was a lawyer, I shouldn't have done that because I wasn't good at it and I didn't love it. And so you go down this path where these 2 things were never, ever going to touch. Well, as a teacher, I'm really good at it and I love it. Now you want to be more specific than that. So I would be a horrible 3rd grade teacher. So if you just say, Corey, what is your, calling in life? Why did God put you on this earth? It's not to be a teacher necessarily. It's to be a teacher to college students and older.
Mhm.
So you want to be somewhat specific when you're trying to figure out these talents. But we all know someone who's awesome at the piano. They're talented, but they hate it. Well, that shouldn't be their career. We know someone who like loves basketball, like me. I'd love to be the shooting guard for the Denver Nuggets, but I don't have enough talent, right? So it's got to be both.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I once coached a young lady that was graduating in music, and I told her, I said, I really don't know anything about music, but I'll be happy to introduce you to people that do. And she said, I'm graduating in music, but it's not what I want to do for my life. And we spent quite a bit of time helping her figure out the type of career that she'd like to get started in. Uh, so in your book, Corey, you recommend having the courage to hit life's curveballs. Can you expound more on that?
It's funny. I should have quoted Mike Tyson in there, right? Like everybody has a plan before they get punched in the face, which is
Right.
like a profound thing. So, everyone's really good when things are going, easy. It's when, maybe I should tell the story. So we went to Jamaica. I took my kids to Jamaica, my wife, and there was a waterfall there, and it's called Dunn's River Falls. And you climb the actual water, like you have to climb up the waterfall. And as you're climbing, right, you can't see anything and the water's hitting you. You're all over the place. It's wild. And I got to the top of that and I'm thinking that's leadership. That's life, right? Like it's easy until the waterfall's pounding you. And so what
Sure.
you want to do is have a plan and be good enough at, the sort of things that you're doing that you can, even in the waterfall, win.
I see. I've been up that waterfall, so I know exactly what you're talking
That's
about.
crazy. I would never do that again. It's not a leadership lesson of I want to do it again, but it was a lesson in like, how do you navigate life's challenges?
Sure. So how can the lack of character impact one's potential for career advancement?
Well, and that's the easy question, right? So, if you are unethical at work, they'll catch you. And if you're unethical in your life, you'll get caught, right? I mean, it's just human nature to catch people. They can hide it for only so long. In the same way that when you turn on the TV and there's a TV show like Cold Case in Law, they usually catch you, right? That's why that's an interesting show, because very rarely do you get away with crimes. The same thing is true of ethics, right? But let's take it to a different context. If you are unethical, I would argue that you will never be happy. And I can prove it to you. Think about the people in your life who lie. They're not happy people. Think about the people in your life who cheat or are bullies or are mean to people. Those aren't happy people. That's why they cheat and are bullies and are mean to people, right? So if you would like to be happy, you need to be a good person. And, this isn't me. Aristotle said that thousands of years ago. And I think that's right.
So are you finding that companies now in interviews are asking questions regarding ethics? Is that an important part of the interview
So
process?
I think they're not asking, and I think it's a huge mistake. As a matter of fact, I would lead off every interview with the question like, okay, define character for me. And the answer to the question is less important than the look in the person's eyes as they're answering it, right? Like I want to look in your eyes and see if you think that's an interesting question, because if you don't, I don't want you anywhere near my place of employment.
Right. um, Corey, can you discuss, you mentioned the roadmap, the journey to an authentic life. And can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, what you need are three things. And what I would say is if money and looks and esteem, if all that stuff comes with these three things, great. But that's not what you need. So you need a sense of contentment in your heart. You want to wake up happy, because that's really a guider of whether you're happy or not. Everyone can put on a face during the day. It's right when you wake up and you realize you're about to, who are you in that moment? Not that you're not stressed about your day or a kid isn't in your room waking you up at 5. That's not the question. It's just, are you sort of content with who you are? That's one. Two is you need a small group of really good friends who would like rush into your life when everyone else rushes out. And then the last one would be you need to be a good person. And I would try to find, those three things would be what I would chase first, and then all the other stuff.
Mhm. I
And I
see.
listen, I'll take that to my grave as being true.
Um, how do you recommend that one learns to pursue a high moral character in their home and work life? what is that process like? Are you either moral or not moral, or can it be learned?
Well, so this is a good question. Everyone wants the quick fix, right? Like everybody wants the give me a book I can read between now and Easter. And I'll promise you, Corey, I'll spend 30 minutes a day, and will that make me a good person? Like those books exist and they're garbage, right? You go to a bookstore and buy a book on how to lose 50 pounds in a month. Like you can buy that book and you're going to get sick, right? Or how to run a mile in 5 minutes in a month. Well, you're going to get hurt. So those books exist, but it's garbage. Like there's no shortcuts in this. And so you just got to get up every day and try. Get up every day and try to be a good person. When you fall down, you get up the next day and you try again. I think it's just this repeated habitual actions over time.
So in our work environment, or even with our friends and family, how can we encourage them to orient their moral compass towards the good?
Well, again, I would make the argument to them that, hey, you don't seem that happy, or I know you're sad. I know, and part of the reason for that is there's always a character piece to that. That's not the only reason, right? If someone's clinically depressed, I mean, there's a million reasons, right? But usually there's a character piece attached to that. And so that I would encourage them, like your life would be so much, like, think about this, Scott. If you never lied to anybody, how much time would you save in your life not having to remember who you lied to? If you didn't have all these petty, trivial fights at work or at school, how much time would you save not having to avoid that person, right? You ever hated somebody and then realized that they don't even care? You spent a year hating someone, they don't even care, they don't even know. We waste a lot of time in our lives on this lack of moral character.
Mhm. I think you're exactly right, and I've seen situations where someone's holding a grudge. It's eating them up from the inside out. And I always encourage them. I say, it's time to take the trash out and dump it,
Yep.
because if you hold that within yourself, it's gonna stink, it's gonna rot, and it's gonna eat you from the inside out. And you just need to take that trash out and dump it. The other person's already forgotten. They don't even know that you're holding this grudge for some reason that they may have offended you. So
Well, and we say that now because we're older and wiser. I didn't think in those terms when I was 20, but I wish I did, Scott, because you're exactly right.
sure. So in your book, you disclose your secret to success. You state that my secret to success is that I consistently persist at my goals with enthusiasm and unending desire to help students further knowledge and improve at my craft. When others quit, burn out, or move on, I just keep persisting towards my goals. So when I read that quote, there was several themes that I could see from that. One is persistence, goal setting, enthusiasm, an unending desire to help others, and then improving upon your craft. So why are these traits so important, and especially as a young person that's starting a career?
Well, I would attribute a ton of my success to that. So, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room because those people are weird, right? Like I'm never the smartest person in the room, very rarely. And that's good. You don't want to be the hardest working person in a room because you'll burn out. The secret to life, one of them is to consistently persist at things that matter to you. So I think that's why I am where I am in my life, because a lot of people give up. Like they want to write a book, but it's too hard. And at some point they give up. They want to finish their degree, but it's too hard, right? At some point they give up. Like for some reason, if something matters to me, I don't give up. And so it's kind of just this, it's not intense necessarily. It's just consistency.
Sure. I've seen people in my industry that do really well initially, and then they flame out because they're so focused on producing and doing well that they forget about having balance in their life, and addressing the other issues such as their physical health, their spiritual health, their mental health.
Right. Well, that's the ladder, right? So all they do is climb for that solitary goal of professional success. And then everything else that matters to them is left down below. And then you look down and that's the stuff your heart really wants, right? And then
Right.
you're screwed. You're totally screwed at that point.
Right. So they focus on one area of their life, neglecting the other areas of their life, and then eventually the area that they're focusing on falls apart because of all the other areas that fallen apart in their life. So I think balance is very
Let
important.
me add something to that. So my wife just quit her job. She's a surgeon, and she's been a surgeon there for a long time. So on the day of the phone call, she called her boss, said she was quitting. He was like, okay, I'm sorry. Then in that same phone call, he says, glad you called me because we're thinking about hiring someone to replace you already. Like, are you kidding me? So you spend all your life away from your family doing this, and they don't even care about you.
Oh,
Most bosses don't. And it's just really, that was really telling. And she wasn't taken aback by it because she's married to me. And we've talked about that. Like, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, Scott, they might be sad, but they just get another fool in there to do this. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, my family would be crushed. And you've got to think about like what really matters in life, right? It's not your job. And to that end, do I think I'm doing important things? Yeah, I love my job. It's just not my number one.
sure, sure. It is important. So, Corey, why is it important not to compare the inside of your own life, the inside of your own family, to the outside of someone else's?
Well, I'm going to clean this up for this call. Okay. It's all BS. Like who on their Facebook page, very few people paste their disaster, where their kid had an accident, the bed, you have to change the sheets. They woke up at 5. You don't post that. And if you do, you'll post a picture of you smiling with a beer that night, so people look at that and they go, yeah, this guy seems really happy. You have no idea what's going on inside anybody else. So that's number one. Second, comparing yourself to others and you're in different positions in life or whatever is fruitless, right? You have different goals, different dreams, generally different belief systems. Like it really is, again, a waste of time. And I'm not anti-social media. You just got to approach it. Like I approach all of social media, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, like everything I'm reading is false until proven otherwise. And that's even true of people's pics, right? Like they'll put these pictures up and I assume that that's not really how it's going.
I see. Yes, that's true. You're only seeing the highlights.
Right.
So, um, any other advice that you can give to young adults about pursuing true contentment?
Step number one is to sit down and get your priorities straight. So say, in my heart, I want these 6 things. Don't have more than that. I want like 6 things. And then ask yourself, is my life providing those things? And if your life is not providing those things that your heart wants, of course you're going to be miserable and you're going to be stressed, so then, but see, we do the Bon Jovi theory of life, Scott, which is living on a prayer, like that's, and listen, I'm a really religious guy. I've got a master's degree in religion. This is not how God tells you to live your life, right? Like you bear some responsibility for its path. And so you need to sit down and figure out, like, these are my priorities, what my heart wants, and is my life leading towards that? And if not, man, you have to make some changes.
Mhm. So, Corey, any other advice that you'd like to offer before we close out this interview? Any other career advice that you'd like to offer to young adults, or even just life advice?
Yeah, I always end like this, Scott. No matter what the audience is, 3rd graders or the Federal Reserve Board, okay? Never put your job ahead of your family. There's a poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson called Success. And so everyone that's watching this should like immediately go print that out. And in that poem, he's got this line, like, you leave a legacy, you make a difference in your life through a healthy child or a garden patch or a redeemed social condition, right? But if you look at the grammar of that sentence, there's a bunch of commas and there's the word or, which means those things are equal. Your legacy isn't just curing cancer. Maybe it is for somebody, but that's not most of us, right? So I said to myself, Corey, I don't have to cure cancer anymore. I just need to be a good dad. And as soon as I believed that, my whole life changed. Again, not that my job doesn't matter, but the kind of dad I am matters more. And so no matter what I'm saying, and no matter how old you are, let me just plant that seed that you may have a boss sometime in your future who doesn't care about your family, and you need to ignore that noise.
Well, thank you, Corey.
Yeah.
We appreciate the time that you've taken today to offer career and life advice to young adults, and I'm certain that the advice that you've offered will have a positive impact on the lives of many young adults all over the world. So to wrap up this video, we'd like to remind our viewers to visit our Learn from Professionals page on the Young Professionals Career Engagement website to view informational interviews that we've completed with a number of seasoned professionals. These professionals offer their advice for exploring and jumpstarting careers in a variety of occupations. Again, Corey, thank you so much for the time that you spent with us today. I sincerely appreciate it.
God bless you all.
Thank you.